Hello, and welcome to Enlightened Empaths, your community for the spiritually awakened, where we discuss, explore, and connect with fellow empaths, healers, intuitives, and seekers. Hello, empaths. We hope you're having a great start to your week. As we move into the cozy season of fall and start to put out Halloween decorations and prepare for longer, chillier nights, what better way to cozy up at the end of the day than with a hot cup of tea? So today we're going to be discussing the magical, intuitive properties of tea with our guest, Susana Harlow, who's just written a beautiful book called A Tea Witch's Grimoire, which offers recipes for magical botanical brews of all sorts, including elixirs, potions, and concoctions, accompanied by spells and rituals to put these brews into action. She discovered her love of wildcraft over 2 decades ago, and when she's not writing, she's studying to become a doctor of traditional naturopathy. Wow, that's fantastic. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh,
I'm
we
excited.
are excited to dive into this process of using tea with intention and to invite really good things into your life. Before we get into all of that, can you just tell us a little bit about how your journey started on the road to calling yourself the tea witch?
My journey, I would say, when it comes to the craft, it had started, as I'm sure most witches have felt when they were a child, that beautiful innocence of being able to see magic and everything and everywhere, and I was definitely one of those that just wanted to reside in nature for the most part and just kind of be amongst all the elements and the animals. And a large part of it was also my grandmother who raised, well, she took care of me for a majority of my childhood. And she, I would say, was very much a healer in ways that you would consider very folk magic. She believed wholeheartedly in remedies and in using your faith and spirituality in healing others. So I got to see a lot of that in her and in helping many people, including a lot of majority of it being our family. So she really inspired me a lot to basically seek out that very same kind of magic. And over the years, as I grew older, I dove deeply into trying to learn everything there was about the craft. And I really got to get into that opportunity when I was around 17 years old and I got to work at a metaphysical store, which it was wonderful. I was completely surrounded by the practice of many different types of paths, honestly. And so I got to learn so much from different witches, different empaths, psychics, cultures, so it was just a wonderful cauldron of knowledge. And it was there where I really grew in my love for herbal remedies, for herbal folk magic, and just diving in to try to learn what each herb can do magically in your life. I practice a lot in that regard. I use a lot of herbs in my practice. And when I was about 20, going on 21, I had the opportunity to work at an acupuncturist clinic who also had made her clinic into a tea room. So it was a two-in-one deal. And she had a wonderful man working with her. They were partners. And he was a tea master. He came from generations of tea masters. And he really opened my eyes to that healing power of tea and how it can enrich your life, your mind, your body, your soul. And I mean, he was so passionate and he instilled that in me because, in a way, it really sparked that memory I had with my own grandmother, combining both herbal remedies with spirituality and healing. And it just, that moment when you are in your craft and you're like, this is home, this is what I need to do. this is it. That's how it felt to me. And I started to really practice that in that clinic. Either I accepted in patients for the acupuncturist or those who also was as interested in tea, and I would serve them tea. And I would do so, with mindful intention on what they came into that store for. Majority was for healing or for some peace of mind. And that's where I started learning how to serve tea with that intention for these people that were looking for it, and it had shown me that they were really positively being affected by the tea and really enjoying it, and leaving out with a good smile and with hopes. That's essentially where I really truly began as a tea witch because I started moving forward there and I started blending together my folk magic, my knowledge in that regard, as well as my healing knowledge, my healing spiritual knowledge, and putting together tea blends with those intentions, for different types of remedies, as I call it. You can call it also spells, but basically, what is a spell but a remedy, that you're trying to mend and heal within yourself. And that's where honestly, my grimoire began. Everything that you see in my Tea Witch's grimoire is all of my recipes that I have done over the years and tested out and have come to really grow and love.
That's beautiful. I love that. And I think with coffee, I always feel like coffee you have in the morning, it gets you up, it gets you going. It's that busy, 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 go, go, go. But what I love about tea is it's about slowing down. It's about taking a moment in your day. And there has always been a ritual around brewing a cup of tea. Can you talk about the ritualistic aspect of making a cup of tea?
Right away, I had noticed that when you're brewing a tea from the very beginning to the very end, you really are incorporating all of the elements. You have earth within the very tea blend itself, the herbs. You have fire to heat up your water, which is also water, the element of water as well. And the steam, the essence of the tea itself is also with air. And looking at a teapot or even your most trustworthy mug that is your favorite, you could even look at that as like a cauldron of sorts. And that in itself is almost like the element of spirit. So you're combining all the elements into one. Bringing that in, you're also, what do you do a lot of the time when you are creating a tea or a coffee or anything, you're taking that moment and you're thinking a lot of the times. You're feeling a lot of the time. Take that time to just unwind or to get ready. That in itself is also a ritual. You're stepping in with mindful intentions and either having a good day or de-stressing and things like that. And that energy goes into your brewing. And that in itself is creating your spell. It's creating your ritual. And a lot of people love using that as, I guess you would call it as mundane magic, as simple as something to do every day, but is also as magical because of what you put into it.
I know some dear people in my life who have a strong connection with herbalism, with plant medicine, with being a plant empath. And they usually, when they do work with those essences, it comes through with an intuitive and a practical. So they know the properties of the plant. Can you discuss that a little bit of how you blend your intuitive of just knowing what to put together for these beautiful blends and learning the practical side of it?
I noticed in my early years of learning when you see a magical blend being put together, it is part wisdom and knowledge as well as your intuition, whatever the plant is calling to be used. Some plants are calling for love or healing, and others are calling for love or protection. And I had noticed that the connection between these things a lot of the time is that when you look into the properties of these different herbs and plants, a lot of them have these certain types of connections that, such as certain connections to the elements. Some is more of a water element, some is more of a fire element, and some are a little bit more gentler, almost, motherly, almost feminine, and others are a little bit more encouraging and strong, almost masculine. And I have noticed over the years that when you put together a well balanced, meaning like you have a tea blend that it has either a good balance of all the elements together with a balance of gentle energy and strong energy, that tends to be the stronger blends. Either you have a blend that is like all more so of a water elemental, gentler energy, then that can be used for a softer, more healing, more self-love, more of that type of brew. Whereas if you look for plants that call to you that sound that feel more warm and strong and encouraging and almost fire, or that calls to do like a protection brew. And the same goes for earthy plants, earthy herbs that to you feel very grounding, balancing. Then that's the kind of brew that you would want to blend together. That is basically how I kind of went into it over the years. I had sought out making balanced blends of either all of the elements or one of each, if that makes sense. Like just trying to find the balance within them that complement each other, and which is part of your knowledge of folk magic, as well as you do incorporate as well as your intuition. What do the herbs call you to do? What are they saying to use them for?
Okay, I have a question. Let's say you wake up and you're feeling very stressed and you've got so much to do and you want to just feel grounded and present and focused. Walk us through how you would make a cup of tea with that intention.
I would definitely focus towards herbs that are a lot more the earthy type of element, as well as the air type of element, such as right away I'm thinking of dandelion root. I love roasted dandelion root. It has always helped my mental clarities because it also has air elements to it. So it has always helped with clarity and helping me project my thoughts to be used in that way. And when it comes to balancing and grounding, I would most likely also add in some roasted barley, which has more earthy elements to it, as well as both of these being wonderful coffee substitutes. So I know that the first thing in the morning, I'm walking out of my room, I need a pick me up, I need to feel grounded and focused. I would join together these two herbs of both earth and air, and probably use my trusty cast iron kettle just to kind of solidify those energies, to help bring in more of a grounding presence to the tea, to the ritual itself, and be mindful as I blend them together. And when I say mindful, I mean putting your whole self into it. I often just stand there talking to my herbs and telling them what I need of them. And I breathe life into my blend as well, just adding in my own essence so it all works together from point A to the very end where I'm sitting down and finish speaking my words of power, I would say. I then just take in the tea, take in the spell within myself and focus in on those intentions.
Do you always recommend blending your own teas or using dry teas, or are tea bags ever okay from bought from a store?
I hold no judgment. This type of craft is very open, I instantly think of, and I say this respectfully, of the tea snobs who probably would say, no, loose leaf is better, dried loose leaf, no tea bags, leave it open and able to move about in your teapot. Realistically, I know everyone has a preference that is sometimes often needed for their lives, whichever is the most easiest and accessible. And that is perfectly okay, to practice the way you wish to practice, because tea magic, what really matters is your intentions and how you connect with the tea, with the brewing process, with the blending or with the tea bag that you get from the store, and I have even sometimes gone to a market desperately needing something that I know that I will need to have some peace and calm with, and I would look at the ingredients in the back of the boxes and see like, okay, this herb is good for this herb is good for that, and this herb is pretty good. For the most part, it's almost balanced. But when I get home, I'll add that one or two other ingredients that will help that balance out, bring about that perfect brew. It's perfectly okay, I'd say. Just use your tea bag or use your strainer or use store-bought or grow your own. It's all about your intentions.
Even though this book is labeled as a tea book, you also have quite a bit of information on herbal preparations and oils and tinctures and vinegars. And how would people use those different ways of preparing the herbs? So versus I'm going to have a tea and then I'm going to infuse it, I'm going to set the intention, I'm going to do this ritual. When you do the tinctures, are you looking to use them for a different reason or a different outcome?
Yes, when you do tea, like a tea spell, tea ritual to incorporate into yourself, you can do other things as well, much like with the other practices, tinctures, when you are blending together the type of herbs, such as you would for tea, it can be done the same way with an alcohol tincture, a milk tincture, where you can use those alcohol tinctures for a quick spell. If you don't have time to sit down and have that moment with your tea, with your mug, with your teapot, and you have to instead get up and go and step out that door and get going to where you need to, but you know that you need a touch of courage, then that will be a wonderful moment, for example, to take out this enchanted tincture of a tea blend that you have done and just place under your tongue or place into a bottle of water and take with you. Take that remedied spell with you on the go.
Do you ever journey to the essence of the plant to get to know them better?
When I hear that question, I'm thinking of when I plant, like when I grow my own, and I connect with those that I'm growing, and I form that bond, essentially their essence with my own breath of life. And that's how I'm taking your question.
Yes. Well, years ago, I was going through an interesting segment. I think we all have those interesting segments. And a dear friend sent me blackberry essence, and she gave me all
Oh,
of the energy, the courage, the power of the blackberry plant through that tincture. And
mhm.
I'm a healthy skeptic, but it really did. There was power in that. There was good medicine, good juju in that tincture. So
Yes,
that's kind of where I was going with it.
I see what you mean. I'm sorry.
Oh
It took the
no.
moment you explained. I was like, oh yes. Yeah, it's very much like when you brew a tea, you're gathering its essence, you're steeping its essence into your mug, your teapot. It's this very same when you're doing either alcohol or milks, different type of milks. In a way, you're also incorporating the magical correspondences of all of those different types of alcohols, the from gin to vodka that I have learned have different types of correspondence. I guess you can say different essences. And you're combining those essences with the tea blend that you've steeped them in.
Denise is right. There's a lot more to this book than just the wonderful recipes and elixirs and brews you have for tea. There's also gorgeous illustrations, which I really appreciated. And you talk a lot about using crystals with teas. I'm such a
Mhm.
fan of crystals. Can you touch upon that and help listeners know what you mean by using crystals with your teas?
It has become a recent passion over the years. It actually started when an aunt of mine gave me a tumbler that where you can attach at the very bottom of it your crystals to it. Like you could place the crystals in the very bottom of the tumbler and you screw it in. And when you put your water, your tea, or what have you, it will be right above that little canister where they're being held. And it's supposed to, the crystals are supposed to lend in their energy to your water. And that became so fascinating to me that I started diving deeper into what crystals can do. And, crystals, each one have their different types of energy or frequencies that can lend in healing properties, um, depending on what is needed. They also have magical correspondences as well that can lend in their energies to those intentions. And I saw that as that is very much the same as with herbs, and just like with alcohol, milks, oils, vinegars, the same can be done with crystals, where tea and crystals can work together in bringing about the same outcome and bringing about more energy, more power to back that up, that back up those intentions. And so I started finding different ways of how that can be done, whether it be water safe crystals where you can actually have them sit within a bowl of water, the water that you can use later on for making your tea, or that the ones that are not so water safe can still lend in their energy just by being beside your tea, beside your water, beside or within the spell ritual itself. It has been a wonderful experience, honestly, to incorporate crystals along with your whole tea ritual. You can feel that intensity of energy. It's much like a crystal grid where it's like in a wonderful unity.
What are some of your favorite crystals that are water safe that you like to put into your tea?
Clear quartz, moonstone, carnelian, amethyst. Those are definitely my favorites.
We're heading into a full moon as we're recording this. What would be like a full moon ritual you would do? Would you put moonstone in your tea? Would you use a special blend for the full moon? Because I know in your book you have a lot about drinking tea with the cycles of the moon.
Yes, I would definitely use moonstone. I use it every time when there is a full moon, even a new moon sometimes. I have a black moonstone that I recently came about, but I would use moonstone. And I also like to be aware of where the moon, which horoscope sign that the moon falls upon, such as in this one, I believe it's going to be in Aries. I'm most likely going to be using some clear quartz, moonstone, more than likely some carnelian, just to kind of help balance out those passions that I already feel stirring up. And the same goes for the tea blend. I will most likely use, I often, I usually use the same blends that you will find in the book. But if I'm feeling like something new is needed, I will often refer to the book and go to a full moon blend, and more than likely like one of the Aries blends that's in the horoscope chapter, probably fix together a balance of both of those recipes, for example. Or if I'm feeling extra ceremonial, which sometimes happen when I'm really in the mood and I can feel the energies are very high, then I will go to my moon tea aspects in the chapter, and I would look under September and find my mugwort moon tea aspect and do that type of high ceremonial ritual.
Oh, I have a
And
question about that. I have tried growing mugwort. I've tried buying it in bag form, loose leaf. I've tried blending it. I know it has wonderful properties for dreaming, and yet I don't like the taste of it. Do you have any tips for people who want to incorporate certain teas into their life, but the taste just isn't really jiving with them?
oh, I'm with you on that with mugwort. Sometimes no amount of honey will help with that. It has been a little bit better when I add like some chamomile or peppermint with my mugwort. It helps almost balance it out. I admit I put probably a little bit more peppermint than needed.
That's a
But
good idea, though.
yes, it's not bad. Yes, but I mean, don't suffer through a tea that does not taste good. You can find a substitute for it that has very similar properties to it. If I'm not in the mood for mugwort, for example, then I probably will go for dandelion leaf. That has also been very helpful for me when it comes to divination or prophetic dreams. So it's
Okay.
okay to look for a substitute that
That's a
has
great
similar
suggestion.
qualities.
We had a guest on. Do you remember Denise? And she said you can pick dandelions from your yard and make tea with them.
Yes.
There, yes.
And it was so funny because she was on the show and I was like looking at my backyard and I needed to mow it. And there's some dandelions. And I'm thinking, wait, I'm gonna like pluck
Mhm,
these and pour boiling water over them. And so I go to my yoga class
mhm.
and it was springtime and this woman, this young girl was in there and she goes, "You guys, I just discovered the most amazing thing from an old woman. She told me to drink fresh dandelion tea. It has to be dandelions that you pick and it'll help cure your allergies." And I was like, what? How
Dandelion.
can this weed do all of that? But is that what we're supposed to do is pick it from our yard, clean them? Do we dry them or just pour boiling water over them?
You can either have them fresh. A lot of times people eat them like the blossoms or the leaves with salads. It's really refreshing, especially in the summertime. Or you could dry them and save the roots, the leaves, the blossoms for teas, tinctures. My goodness, dandelion is so nutritious. It has so many vitamins and minerals to it. Honestly, I believe it has been referred to as one of the most healthiest and rich in antioxidants weed out there. And it is really good. Although be mindful of where you live, because if you live like in a neighborhood, for example, and you're not really sure if whether your neighbors are spraying their lawns with pesticides or weed killers, that is a little to just be cautious because sometimes that could creep into your own lawn and it can potentially cause a hazard with your own dandelions or whatever it's growing. So
Sure.
if you are in an area that you know for sure that your neighbors are not doing that or you're foraging, then that's so fine. Definitely do so. Dandelion is a wonderful plant.
Do you read the leaves as well? Do you do divination
Tea leaf
through tea
reading?
leaves? Yes.
Yes, I love it. Yes. It is such a fun little tea party. I was about to say game. It's not a game, but it's a wonderful activity to do together as friends when you're just drinking tea together. Like, yes,
And do you follow specific symbolism with it, or do you see what comes through for you intuitively and what you see in the leaves?
it's a bit of both.
Okay.
Just like most psychics, they do, depending on the tool, they do a little bit of both. They do the symbolisms and the meanings behind them, as well as what comes to them. That's what usually tools are meant for, just to ignite and open your senses.
It seems
Um,
like there's a resurgence in reading the leaves and tea ceremony and tea houses and tea rooms. So it's nice to be bringing back the older ways, because
yeah.
that's what I love about everything that you're talking about is this isn't brand new fresh. This has been around for so
Mhm.
many generations.
I have noticed that too, that it really warms my heart to see these traditions not die because it is a part of history. It is a part of our ancestors.
Before we got on to record, we were speaking, and you mentioned that you had moved to a different part of the country, which some people may often see as a bit more conservative or not as open to herbalism and witchy stuff and juju. And you said that you have found this beautiful, beautiful community there of like minded people with a spiritual perspective. How did you foster that? Did you just kind of land in it? Because I know there are a lot of people that may live in what's deemed a more conservative part of the country that are saying, I can't find my people.
It does take time to find your people. It is true. Honestly, I lived here for a whole year longing for such a connection. And I wholeheartedly believe that when the time is right and the door opens and you walk through it, you will find this community. Because that is exactly what happened for me here in the deep south. And it honestly had started small, and then before you knew it, it grew into a huge group of people, a huge community of people. And it all started when the stores began opening here. You know, there is a store in Prattville, Wolf and Mercantile. It's a crystal store. It's a wonderful store opened by a beautiful and strong woman who wanted a safe space for people with like minds, with spiritual intentions, love, and light to come together. And she had successfully done so. People started coming. Like I said, when the door opens, they come. The same can be said for a town here nearby, a store called Sky Apothecary. The same thing happened. They opened their classes, their meditation sessions. And again, people started coming, the door opened. And I started going more to these events, these meetings, these sessions, and just meeting everyone that was there. And the wonderful thing about the Deep South is the the Southern charm does not die, and everyone is just fully embraces each other and wants to learn about you and wants to also be learned and wants to connect and bond, and it has been an amazing journey being here and getting to know all these people that I honestly did not have when I was in California. Here, I will go to events and I don't know how many times I have said hello to people that I have come to know and recognize in such a short time because of their willingness to open their hearts and to connect and explore this journey together.
That's fantastic. And I think it goes back to the intention, setting the intention and going throughout your day with very specific goals in mind and using these tools that we have right at our hands in our pantry and apparently in our backyard. we can we can really use that to set these intentions. So the book is called The Tea Witch's Grimoire. We'll put links up to it on our Facebook page and on our my Instagram page so you can follow along. You have a website that's the Tea Witch blog.
Yeah.
And thank you everyone for listening. Please remember, as always, to show up, do great work, and share your light.
Take care.